I think there's some people, if they don't see the path, they don't want to try. If they don't see how they could get, from here to there, they don't want to take the first step.
It's almost a mind shift. And I think if your focus is on the product, it might not be what it's going to be too hard or this or that, but you have to love the process. The process is what gets you up every morning. And then the product suddenly gets there.
If you don't have $1 million yet, you're living a much lesser life than what could be easily available to you with the right guidance. My head coach has freed up a few spots in his calendar to hold one-on-one strategy calls with the highest quality applicants. If you're doing well already and you're looking to accelerate your momentum and do even better, click the link in the description now and apply for your strategy session. More at the end of this video.
Today I'm sitting with Eric Nicksick. Eric's the gym manager and lead trainer at Xtreme Couture. And, Eric, I hope you don't mind if I says it's one of the best gyms in the country, maybe one of the best gyms in the world for MMA. It's certainly one of the most visited and well-known gyms. How'd you get there? How'd you become the top dog over there calling shots?
Kind of a crazy story, Derek. I was member number 1 at Xtreme Couture.
Really?
Yeah, member number 1. So, 2007, I kind of just showed up. I knew Randy was opening up a gym. I was looking for something. I felt like I was missing something in my life that football gave to me, and that was really the camaraderie, the team, and being around like-minded individuals looking to accomplish a common goal. And I set foot in the gym, and for some reason why I just felt home, even though I was getting the crap kicked out of me, and Mike Pyle and Jay Haran and some of the old school guys, but although I was getting the crap kicked out of me, they're always very welcoming to that regard, and I understood the dichotomy. I started to understand what the gym was all about, and I never left. I've been there since day one.
Randy's been here with me. I've chatted with Randy Couture before. Fantastic man. He's accomplished so much in multiple areas of his life. He's a great MMA fighter himself, and 5 or 6 time champion. 5-time champion.
Yeah.
6-time champion, I think. And then. But Randy's also a great entrepreneur. He's built a great system of camaraderie over there that a lot of the most talented people in the world in your sport have gathered there to train amongst each other and train with men like you. And and then Randy's also later in life become a well-established actor on top of that. So there's few people that had the versatility to do the things, and a military guy.
Yeah.
So there's few people that have the versatility to live the life of a robust life like Randy has, and great man.
Great. He's been a great mentor to me in all facets of my life, and for me having that type of resource, if I have a question, I can always pick up the phone. And for a while, it was a lot of MMA related things, and then I started to understand a lot the connection between personal things and life and how it transcends into MMA. So I pick up the phone a lot and talk to Randy about life advice things, But like you said, he always was kind of planting the seed somewhere else. He always had MMA, but then it turned into the acting side. And he was always working on that behind the scenes. So I remember when he was maybe the tail end of his career, he was taking acting classes. He had the gym, and the gym was starting to flourish. He had his charities. So, the GI Foundation. And then about 5 years ago, Randy and myself started the chapter for MVP in Las Vegas. So we always kind of had something going in my head, like following his lead. I was like, well, if I can kind of follow Randy's blueprint, then I know that I'm going to be successful too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He's, again, solid guy. When did that gym start, by the way? What year did it first open?
2007.
2007.
2007.
So looking at 15 plus years.
This is our 15-year anniversary coming up.
You walked in the door a long time ago. And,
yeah.
Was it 8 years ago you took over as the
gym manager? Yeah, Randy offered me the gym manager job. So I was going to school for the fire department. I was going to be a firefighter paramedic. I was in paramedic school. And my path, my vision was completely something different. But I was always training at the gym. I was coaching and had my other things, but school and everything else was like, okay, this is going to be my career. And then I got hired by 2 departments, and I wasn't picked up because of a fight I got in college. And it hurt. It hurt because I'm like, okay, this is what I thought I was going to become, but I got derailed. But all the while, the gym was always like there for me, but I didn't really know where I fit in as far as a career went. And then Randy offered me the job. He said, hey, look, I think this would be a good role for you. I want you to take over as the gym manager. What do you think? And, there was a lot of people that I knew that were involved with the gym. I don't know, man, I don't think it's a good idea. And I don't know if the gym's going to be what you think it's going to be and how, if you can, resurrect it and this and that. And then for me, I thought of that as a challenge. It's like, oh, you don't think so? Bet. All right, let's go. Let's do this, and it motivated me. It motivated me because, the gym was such a huge staple in MMA when Randy was fighting. And then when Randy retired, it kind of fell off. It just didn't have that luster that it once did. And myself and Dennis Davis and Robert Follis, we looked at that as a challenge and we wanted to resurrect that gym. And now, there's world champions training out of there.
I think every successful person, any person who is significantly successful, had numerous failures or misjudgments or things like that are part of the story. Have you seen anybody that's extraordinarily successful that doesn't have something like that in their background?
I want that. I want to see failures and see how you respond. How do you respond? How do you bounce back? And I think a lot of the reasons why I myself and Francis are very connected, or I gravitated to him, is because of his rejection over and over and over his entire life to get to the point where he's at. So when we got to the point in the Gone fight where it was 2-2 going into round 5, and I knew in my head, I'm thinking to myself, this man has been through so much his entire life of resiliency, right? And rejection, and been told over and over and over he couldn't do it. I was like, man, all we need now is 5 minutes to go beat this guy. Mm-hmm. I'm taking him every time.
I was in the front row at that fight. I was at the Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane. And it was a hell of a fight. Those guys they're both, but they're my size. They're about the same weight. Actually, I weigh more. but they're about my size. They're big guys. And, it'd be a tough day for, anybody to fight with either one of them. You're going to have a tough day. And I hear people in the crowd, because a lot of that fight was on the ground.
Yeah.
And I hear people in the crowd, stand them up, boring. And I thought, in real time, I'm watching this and I'm understanding some of the detail of what's happening, and I thought to myself, some hater in the crowd saying, I wonder if they'd be bored if they could just be in the cage with either one of those men for just a round, just one, not 5 rounds, just one.
And it's funny
if they'd be bored then.
It's funny to me because it's like they think it's just so simple, just stand up or just get up, or they want the ref to get them up or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And I want those people to understand what it's like to be underneath a guy like Francis Ngannou while he's sitting on top of you trying to rain elbows on your forehead. It's not fun. It's not fun at all.
Boring. If I wouldn't think exactly. That was boring.
But I think when you understand the sport, when you have an intelligent eye for the sport, or for me, Jake Shields has always been one of my favorite fighters, and he's been labeled as boring. I don't understand how that's possible, because I know how hard it is to hold another man down, another trained professional, hold that person down, not against their will. They're trying to do everything they can to get up. And Jake will maul you for 3 rounds or 5 rounds or whatever it takes. It's hard to do, and it's hard work, and it's hard on your cardio. It takes a lot of technique. So in a fight like that with Francis, we had to adapt on the fly. He has a torn MCL, torn ACL. We couldn't strike the way we wanted to. We had to adapt on the fly. And that to me was his crowning achievement as a champion, was find a way to win other than go and knock a guy's head off.
Jake Shields is a good friend of both of ours, to be clear. And Jake and I train together all the time. And they see that on Instagram and YouTube. They probably think we work out once a month or something, but they actually think in reality we're working out, 9 hours, 10, 11 hours anytime he's over there, over a 3-day period. And I outweighed Jake by 70 pounds, and he still works me over pretty good, consistently. And I learn a little bit, and sometimes he has to go to a 3rd or 4th move to get me now, but he still gets me consistently.
Which tells you he's doing a great job coaching you.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot. Some of it is humbling. You learn some of those lessons in a humbling manner, but I'm learning a lot very quickly, and I have tremendous respect for Jake and learned a lot from him. And
Jake has definitely been one of our best additions to our team in a long time.
Yeah,
as far as what he brings to the table as a coach and his knowledge, but also fits our ideology of Xtreme Couture, what we want to do, what we want to accomplish. When you see our team and what we as fighters, the overall conception, we can take somebody down and we can beat them up if we have to, right? And that's what Jake Shields prides in. And he's been a great addition to the team and spreading his knowledge amongst the rest of the fighters they have in the gym. And you're starting to see each and every guy pick something up and be able to go use that in the fight.
a conversation you and I were having before this chat today on camera is kind of related to that old Bruce Lee quote about, you'd be more fearful of someone who, practiced, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but practiced the same kick 1,000 times rather than someone who practiced 1,000 different kicks. And, so you and I have had a bit of a chat about that. What's your perspective of that, of training for perfection?
I think for me, when I first started, I realized, especially in the grappling department, it was like you wanted just to read the entire book like in one sitting, and you're brushing over things, but you're not really taking in all the information the way you should, And then I remember Dennis Davis, he would be like, "Hey, your body type, I want you to focus on only Kimuras for a month. We're only doing Kimuras for a month." So when I get into grappling situations, the only submission I can find or hunt was this Kimura. And I'm like, it forced you into it. And I'm like, okay. And then a month goes by and my Kimura game, was after it. And he's like, okay, this month, only head arm chokes. You can do anacondas, darces, or head arm chokes. Okay. So anything that had the arm tied in, I was hunting for that over and over and over and over again. So for about a year straight, it was like a different submission. That's all you can work on. And then we kind of revisited that. Well, what were you the most successful with? You were most successful with this submission. Then we're going to dial that back in and we're going to only go back to that. So to me, the fundamentals, or just finding what really fits your body type, what fits your style. Some guys aren't triangle guys because they don't have long legs or the dexterity to do it. So they get away from the triangle choke, or they're doing something different. So for me, it was kind of just figuring out what worked and sticking to that and basic fundamentals and working on it over and over.
What do you think of, what do you imagine the trajectory or the outcomes would be for somebody who, instead of learning those things of, the detailed nuances of let's spend a month on this one thing, let's spend month 2 on this second thing, and so on. What if you just try to learn, dozen things at once? What do you imagine their trajectory is going to be?
I almost kind of think of it as like a computer overload, right? You're just giving it too much information at a time and it starts to get sluggish because you're just not really picking up or refining the fine details of that submission or what you're trying to do, or even if it's an escape. I don't care what it is. But I think when you just get information overload, it just becomes, you're just brushing it over and you're not really finding the details. And that to me is the most important part, is because when you understand the details and the nuances of any submission or any technique, right? You understand the reasons why you're doing something. It starts to open up new things for you as well.
I tell my clients a lot, more than they'd like to hear. So, you have to have a mastery of fundamentals. That you're not going to go do things your way and have a good outcome without a solid mastery of those foundations or fundamental things. And it's really extraordinarily dangerous in either area, in business,
right,
entrepreneurship / investment, or in fighting. If you if you know just a little bit about something and then you're like, oh, I'm going to do it my way, and like, well, when you have to go test yourself against the world, you're going to find out that your way is pretty shit. If
somebody's been doing it, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. For somebody, you got to go compete in the stock market with literally the smartest finance people in the world, and you're going to go do it your way without understanding the fundamentals. Like your way is going to lead you to bankruptcy.
100%.
And if you did that in a fighting context, like your way is going to lead you to a concussion or maybe worse.
Right. And we lean on that quite a bit in fights too, Derek. Like there's been times where if we simplify certain things, I'll tell a guy maybe going into round 3, like Maki's last fight we had on Friday night, just stick to your jab. Just the jab alone. And we're talking basic fundamentals. The first thing you learn in striking is the jab, right? If we could just stay on our jab the rest of this round, we're going to win this fight. That's it. And that's all he did. He jabbed the guy, kept his range, popped the guy's head back, everything else set up off of it, and he won the fight. Just stayed basic fundamentals.
And after you have a mastery of those fundamental moves or whatnot, so say we'll stick with your boxing analogy. If you had strong jab, strong cross, integrate a hook, integrate a uppercut, and if it might take a long time to get each of those things independently, but if you have a good mastery of those independently, you start to put together some pretty sick combinations and get a hell of a flow out of there. That and for somebody who hasn't made that same effort or commitment to what might be boring to some people, like, all right, but that's the shit that gets results long term.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of our day and age too. Is like the attention span, everybody wants to just be in a rush and what's next? And okay, give me this, give me this, give me that, on our phone and looking, and it's almost like, nope, we're just going to slow everything down. We're going to work on this thing over and over and over until it's to what we consider as perfect, and then we're going to go and add something else, right? And then start building that base.
I think if you know several of the people that I've worked out with that I'm sure you've met. We never had the conversation, but I'm sure you've met some of these people besides just Jake or Paulie, and you'll never hear any of these people say that I don't try to rush anything. I don't need to. I don't want to. Hey, let's try 30 new things this week. I really believe that in my heart and my mind that, like, if you could get the core movements or the core philosophies internalized and then build on that consistently, you'd have better results quicker than trying to do a bunch of fancy shit at once that you're just not qualified. If you accidentally had a result on that once, it wouldn't be a consistent or reliable
exactly
result.
And I think it's almost like a car engine. If you understand how to put the car engine together, you understand how to take it apart. So if you're in a position, let's use a triangle choke for an example. Well, maybe I'm not at a perpendicular angle. Maybe I'm not, I don't have my foot locked up correctly, or I don't have flexion in my leg, or I don't have the angle that I need for the carotid artery. So if you understand how to put the car engine together and take it apart, well, then it's like, oh, well, in this particular submission, oh, the spark plug, something's wrong with the spark plug. Okay, make that adjustment, right? I understand everything a little about it, and that's because it's been repped over and over and over. You know it like the back of your hand.
Yeah, I think it's a danger. We're saying this slightly repetitively, but it is worth making the point. I'm not a trendy person. I don't give a shit what the new trendy thing is, or whatever the cool new thing is. I tend to have like a strong bias towards like, well, what are the systems that have been working for hundreds of years or thousands of years or longer?
Tried and true.
Those are things that get results, you know?
Exactly.
So I'm a nerdy guy, I had a lot of philosophy classes and psychology classes in college. I'm a business major and, business for graduate school, but I like to learn things about, history and philosophy and psychology, and, I understand that if you don't understand what happened in the world before you were there, you have a hard time understanding what you're dealing with in real time as well. So when I think to myself, something like Aristotle, Aristotle's logic from 2,500 years ago is the foundation of modern computer science.
Right.
The same principles of logic that he pointed out. He didn't invent them, but he recognized them and popularized them to more than he ever could have imagined, I'm sure. Those are the fundamentals of computer science today. And if you think of, I mentioned Aristotle, if you think of the lineage involved in that is that, Socrates was the mentor of Plato, and Plato was the mentor of Aristotle, and Aristotle was the mentor of Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great, conquered everything in the known world and more than the Greeks or Europeans of that time even knew existed. He went farther than anyone from his terrain ever went before, all the way through India. And when I think about when you're learning from someone that's a master in their area, and then I think maybe it's Newton that had that quote that if he saw farther than others, it's because he stood on the shoulders of giants. And
there you go.
I think about that in mentorship. But when Alexander had some benefits there of having a lineage of high quality, best in world of mentors. And when I think of when I'm working out with Jake or when we're training with Paulie, when Paulie makes comments of like, I learned this from Lennox Lewis, or Shane Mosley taught me to do this way, or Zab Judah mentioned blah blah blah, or Mayweather always does this. When I hear Paulie say things like that to me, that it's not just speaking about those people, but where did they learn that from?
Right.
And where did they learn that from? And like
the lineage.
You're literally, I'm literally learning from like Muhammad Ali or George Foreman or the predecessors before that. And if you think of a person that doesn't, I really value high level education and high level coaches and mentors, because think of what the opposite of that is. So when I was a kid, we were around a bunch of ruffians and that probably didn't read much.
Right.
Who are they learning from, and who are the mentors of their mentors?
Exactly.
It was like Bobo down the street. So it's like Bobo, and then Bobo Senior, who's also a doofus, of course, and it's literally a lineage of champions versus a lineage of buffoonery, and there's a compounding gains to that. That if if you learned champion outcomes, that you learned from one champion and built on that slightly and built on that slightly and built on that slightly, you're literally having the best instruction. And you've been around these people in a violence context, or in a martial arts context, more appropriately. You're literally having the best instruction possible in your day and age, like the cutting edge of that endeavor.
Yeah, exactly to your point too, is like checking your surroundings and knowing the type of people that you're around constantly. Are they evolving with you? Are they helping you grow? Are they raising a standard? Do they meet your level of standard, right? And then that's, for me too, like being around the gym, or I started to understand the types of individuals that I was with, and I'm like, this is where I want to be. These guys and girls are going to make me better version of myself. But moreover, like you talked about, they lay the blueprint, and they want you to pass them, to surpass them. Mm-hmm. They want you to be better than them, right? And that was a lot of times when with Coach Follis, my relationship with him. He was one of the best MMA coaches in the world. And his goal, his message to me was like, I want you to become better. I want you to become better than me in these areas.
It's really a hallmark of a good mentor that does wish for that in their heart. They don't just say it, but you feel it. That that person, and you feel that it is their strong desire that they could teach you everything they know, and you could build upon that as well.
Agreed.
And occasionally, I'm trying to think of the right negative emotion I experience, but I'll just leave it at that. I guess, I feel a few negative emotions. Somebody writes me, and somebody that doesn't even know me, but, I have pretty big social media followings, and occasionally somebody writes me, is like, I'm going to do better than you, Derek. And I'm like, well, I wish you well. Probably not with that attitude. Right. With that attitude, you're probably not. I don't even write them back, of course, but in my head, I'm like, a person who's thinking like that almost assuredly is not going to do better. And, but the other thought I have is like, if they were one of my clients or somebody that I got to know, like, that's the whole point. I'd be happy.
That's the whole point.
To help them do better. It'd be my desire to help them do better. But it's so bizarre to me that somebody writes something that's kind of snotty or.
I never understood that mentality. I'm just not a hater. I'm not going to blow out somebody else's candles. Not going to make my room shine brighter. It's just not, right. You see that a lot. I think in the coaching realm of MMA, there's a group of us that are just, we write each other, we talk to each other, we communicate, and then there's another group that they don't want to see you succeed. They want to see you fail, right? And for me, I'm around those guys, the Henry Hoofs of the world, Tyson Chartier, great guys to be around. We're pushing one another, we're checking in on one another, we lean on one another. And that's what I appreciate a lot about that the sport, and then being around those type of individuals.
Henry's coming to my studio /gym on Wednesday. Henry's my buddy, and I like Henry. We've talked a couple times a week now, and I like Henry a lot. I think he's a really great man.
He's been a great mentor to me for years. And here's what I appreciate about Coach Henry. There's no reason why he has to do it. There's no value he gains out of being a mentor to me, other than the fact that he cares, that he gives a shit. He doesn't have to spend time talking to me or help me grow. Realistically, we should be competitors. We run gyms that compete against each other. And he takes the time out of the day to call, to check in, see how I'm doing, right, whatever. And what I really love about him is that he knows that he can critique me or say, hey, this could be better. You could be better here. Because I don't want to have a mentor that doesn't tell me what I need to do better, right? I want a mentor or somebody that I look up to be honest with me. Honesty sometimes hurts on the front end, but it's what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And Henry's been that guy for me.
You have about 3-4 topics going that I'm enamored with. All of them is not being a hater of this comment of do you want to have, you prefer to have a big ego or big outcomes? It's kind of hard to have both together. That I found that even when I was doing quite well in certain areas of my life, or say for business would be my strongest areas, that I was making a lot more money than my professors, even when I was in university. I was having more fun and making more money than them. And I thought, well, hey, dumbass, in my internal self-talk, like, well, hey, dumbass, like you're here, and it was hard to get here. You hustled your ass off to make sure you could go to like the best business school, And I was at U Chicago, which was ranked #1 out of 416 when I was there. And and some of your professors are Nobel Prize winners,
Right.
and some of your professors are multi-billionaires. But some of them they got a PhD from Harvard, and they never did a damn thing in the real world.
Yeah.
And they're telling you things that are factually wrong. But I'm like, well, do I want to focus on where the Harvard PhD guy doesn't know what he's talking about because he never actually ran a business? Or do I want to focus on like, well, but the Harvard PhD guy does know some things that'd be beneficial for me to learn. And maybe I should focus on that and get the most utility and benefit.
Pick and choose, and yeah.
So different times in my life that I would have been right to say that like, well, that person doesn't know what they're talking about in this context, and I know better, and I've done better already, so what the hell do I care? But it also would have been stupid versus thinking like, well, that probably is factually true, but they do know some things that I don't know, and I should probably, since I'm going to be here anyway, I'm not going to drop out of the class, maybe I should focus on like, well, what are the things that I could learn that would be beneficial to my future and help me go farther?
Exactly. And sometimes I learn things even if they're showing me it the wrong way, right? Well, this might not be the way I would do it. This might be the way somebody else does it though, right? Like, if it's, I'll use an example. We had Uriah Hall at our gym, and Uriah, I said, hey, coach, can I run a practice today? Absolutely, run a practice. And Uriah was showing his spin kick that he did against in the Ultimate Fighter. And probably 50, 60% of the guys in the room just can't do it. They couldn't do it. And one guy was like, why is he showing this? This is a waste of time. I'm never going to do this. And I go, maybe you're never going to do it, but maybe you'll have an opponent that will, right? Maybe there's somebody that you're going to run across. So don't think of it as you executing the technique. Think about you being in there, seeing the technique and being a part of it and understanding it and understanding the mechanics of it, looking at how he's stepping out, switching his feet, generating power, creating inertia, waiting for that head kick to come, right? So you get that opponent one time, now you know, I've seen it before.
I met Uriah briefly once. He's a very nice guy.
Yeah.
It was we were around some other people that we mutually knew.
Yeah.
And just a brief meeting, but seemed like a nice guy.
Great guy.
Certainly talented guy. Let's go back to haters for a second. Have you ever met a hater doing significantly better than you? Have you ever been hated on by somebody who was doing a lot better than you?
To me, the people that hate the most are like, they're really under wraps. Like, you know that they're not really your friend or a fan of yours or whatever else to your face, but you hear it in the background and you hear this and hear that. They've never really been that to me. I feel like their focus is just more worried about you failing than them finding the ways to succeed and become better. Why are you worried about me?
I've oftentimes said a couple of things about haters. The number one thing a hater hates is himself.
Exactly.
And additionally, it's really hard to find a hater that's doing better than you. I never met a billionaire that made fun of me for being less wealthy than him.
Never.
I never met somebody like that.
Never.
I've shook hands with maybe 25-ish billionaires. None of them made fun of me for being relatively poor compared to them.
Yeah.
I met a lot of former UFC and some current UFC champions. None of them ever called me a pussy because I wasn't a champion as well. Or couldn't beat them at a fight at the peak of their career.
Right.
So I never had those experiences where I never been hated on by somebody doing better than me. I think it's always by default somebody who's is looking at your success or accomplishments, and some part of their head, they know that they maybe possibly in an alternate universe they could have done that too. They see that they could have done that, but they never put in the effort.
I got a great line for you.
I'm excited.
This is from one of my good friends, and I loved it. Hate is the preferred emotion of the underachiever.
Make a note of that. That's a fun one. Hate is the preferred emotion of the underachiever. It's a class of people. Yeah, that makes sense.
The first thing that they can get to is they got to hate on something to try to bring you down to their level. Right?
No, it's consistent with my other thoughts about it. I never thought of it exactly that way, but it's congruent in the sense that it's a person that they see the potential in themselves of what they could have been or who they could have become, what they could have done, but they didn't make the effort. So they see somebody else that, frankly, they might have been more talented, but they didn't work as hard.
They'd rather spend more time writing you on social media why you're not this or that than going out and becoming better or doing something themselves. They would rather use their time to do that.
Yeah. I had, I don't want to say the guy's name, but I was spending time with a fellow that you would know that's a multi-time champion, fantastic person, and he lost a fight. And there's a video of us out together, and somebody goes out of their way to write me and tell me, oh, your buddy lost, blah, blah, blah. And so, well, if imagine what he or his opponent would do to you in a fight. And the person at least wrote back. I usually don't respond to these at all, but I just thought, well, yeah, if he lost to that guy, imagine what either one of them would do to you, though.
Right.
And the guy wrote back, he's like, probably anything he wants. And kind of like a sad face. I thought that was at least some clarity, So at least that part of his mind was clear of like, yeah, probably anything you wanted to.
For sure. I think that's why I have in my gym, when we show you around the gym this week, the man in the arena hangs in my gym. It's because these men and women are actually the ones going in there to do it. And it takes a big coward to come out and criticize somebody that's putting themselves out there to do what they do, and to be mean to them when they've never done it themselves or would never have the balls to do it.
If we took the opposite side of this, and I'll use the comment you just made to make that transition, it's like, I always thought if I seen somebody else doing, I was never a hater myself. And I had some times in life that I felt pretty shit. I felt pretty lowly at times, like as a teenager, that my dad was. It's my fault as an adult, okay? But as a child, my dad wasn't around. My father was in prison for a lot of my childhood for drug trafficking. My mother was not the best mother, and I didn't have good mentors or role models. So that was kind of a quest of mine. That like my brain worked good, like I could process information well, and I was willing to work hard. But I didn't really know what to work on at certain times of life, if that makes sense, And if you're working hard on the wrong thing, you're literally making your life worse.
Yeah.
So I paid that loser tax enough times of like, work really hard on something and you realize like, this isn't, for the amount of effort I'm putting into this is not going to have the dividends or returns that one would hope for in life, But I looked around and I thought to myself like, well, I see other people doing well in the world, and like, not every moment of their life was perfect either. So, I had that thought in my head that if you could keep chipping away at something and making progress over time, that you'd see a path more clearly and you'd earn a better mentor or a better role model or better coach, and you'd earn your way into that. And, if they see that you kept making progress and chipping away, again, you'd make progress and you'd earn a better mentor or coach and whatnot. And, that system worked out really good I really lived my life that way, and that worked out really great for me the last, more than 20 years. I think there's some people, if they don't see the path, they don't want to try. I think it's most people, honestly. And I'm not even making fun of them. I think it's just kind of a default for a lot of people.
Right.
That if they don't see the path forward, if they don't see how they could get from here to there, they don't want to take the first step. They're scared to take the first step.
It's almost a mind shift. And I think if your focus is on the product, it might not be what it's going to be too hard or this or that, but you have to love the process. The process is what gets you up every morning. And then the product suddenly gets there. And one of the things that I loved when I remember reading Marcus Luttrell's book, The Lone Survivor. And it just, the shift of mindset to me was, you're shot 11 times or however many, you have however many broken bones through your body, and you had to get to this village that was however many miles away. How did you do it? How did you get there? And he said, you know what I did? I drew a line in front of me, and I knew I could crawl to that line. And I crawled to that line, I drew another line, and I crawled to that line. And I'm like, holy shit. It was the mindset, right? It wasn't how far I had to get to, and that's too far, I can't make it. I know I can make it to that line right there. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that again. And guess what? He made it to where he needed to be, to safety, because his life depended on it, right? And I always tell guys too, like sometimes just draw a line, man. Let's get that one line in front of us. Let's conquer it. Let's get to that, and then we'll move on to the next.
Yeah. No, having a positive mindset. I'm not at all like one of these like woo-woo, manifest some bullshit in your life
Right.
type of guys. I just think extremely pragmatically.
Right.
If I had an outcome in mind, first of all, is that how much do I want to pay the price to, how much am I willing to pay to have that outcome,
Yeah.
relative to other things I might also want in my life. And I'm not a good balance guy. I hear people say, well, Derek, I seen on Instagram, though, what's really important is a balanced life. I'm no good at that. I think, well, if you wanted to have, an exceptional outcome, then you're probably going to have to be pretty exceptionally focused on, one or two things that would lead to that outcome. Because
Exactly.
if you have a lot of balance and you're doing a whole bunch of things in a mediocre way, then I would anticipate that person would have some pretty mediocre outcomes in life,
Exactly. Balance is hard, especially when you're focusing on your career. And I have a wife and 3 kids, and I have the gym, and there's balance is hard at times. But it's nice when you have that support system to kind of reel you back. Hey, babe, you haven't taken me to dinner, or we haven't done this. And you're like, okay, right? My dad always talked like this. He said, you're given 1 cup of water for the day, and you have 3 or 4 buckets, and each bucket commands water, right? So you try to pour a little bit of water in each bucket to balance everything out. But next thing you know, this bucket over here is overflowing because you're focused on my career or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, like for me, like when you communicate those things, like to my wife especially, it's like, hey, if you can give me time to fill this bucket up and overflow, it's going to give me time to refill these buckets up too. And then the money's safe, we're secure, we have a career, we have this. Now the rest of that stuff gets to fall into place. So yeah, the balance for me has always been hard, but it's nice especially when you have a support system, like kind of like, hey, you haven't taken your daughters out for dinner, in a while, so rebalance.
I'm just saying a number off the top of my head that seems right to me. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it'd be an exaggeration to say that you've been around, hundreds, maybe plural, hundreds of champions in one endeavor, boxing, or not just UFC, but other high level sports. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, very much.
So hundreds of champions, fit that in your head. And do you see those people on their way up? Do they have a lot of balance in their life on their way to that world championship, or they're pretty focused on the things that would get them there?
And I want them to be, and I tell them that. I agree with you. You have to be selfish, right? You have to have these horse blinders, because you have a vision of what you want. And if that is what you want and that's the success that you feel, then there should be just this undoubting effect to get to where you need to be. And they're selfish. And I think their balance is on that goal.
I think, I'll tell a brief story. Same thought, same macro topic, but I had the joy to spend a little time around Jack Welch before he passed away. And Jack Welch seems like you might know, he was the CEO of General Electric and for something like 30 years. And it's one of the most respected CEOs ever in not only U.S. business history, but anywhere. And Jack was famous back in the day for firing. They called him Neutron Jack because he fired so many people. It's like they were vaporized and gone. Yeah. But something Jack said at a dinner with me, he says that he's at the time he's 80-ish and his Boston accent. He's like, the trouble with these millennial kids, they want to give. They want to give. They want to give everything away. But they haven't fucking done nothing yet. He said, it's like me showing up with like a horse and a wagon. And I show up in front of the people and I stand in the back of the wagon. I say, it's all for you. It's all for you. But there's nothing in the fucking wagon.
It's just a horse and a wagon. They haven't built shit.
And I think that made the point, and it was a nice affirmation to me from a guy that I respect, that you're going to have to be selfish and focus on creating significant value for yourself before you have anything to share with others.
To give, yeah.
If you don't have a skill set or some resources of some kind, if you haven't developed some resources or some skills, then who the hell cares what you have to? It's just empty words.
Right.
It's just empty words if you haven't put in the work to learn those foundations and fundamentals in some area that matters to others.
Yeah, you're right.
And I always thought to myself, whenever I'd like somebody to do something for me, which is numerous times per day, I'd like somebody to do something for me. And I always thought that the best strategy for me to do that is like, well, what could I do for them that would be, significantly disproportional, that I could help them so much that anything that I might want from them, they'd be delighted to help me with
Yeah,
that.
of course. Yeah.
Continue
Yeah.
that relationship or
100%.
friendship together. You know?
I agree.
I think about that with people I work with too, that the best way to get what I want is to be the best option for other people too. You know?
Yeah.
And be thoughtful of who they are and what they want. And I can't be that for everybody, nor do I want to be. There's limitations of my personality and skills or your personality and skills. But I would think ideally, curious about your perspective of this, like I think like an ideal relationship is it's going to be two people that have similar values. And I would loosely define that as that, you know, they're going to behave with integrity with each other. If they make hey, we're going to do this together, then they're not going to act outside of their integrity and their shared conception of what integrity means to them. You know,
Exactly.
so they have similar values, they have similar goals that all right, you know, you and I, we agree on these fundamental integrity issues that some people may or may not agree with, but they're not going to be part of our group. All right. And then we have similar goals. We both want to go over here. And then if we had differentiated skill sets, if one person was very good at something and the other person was very good at something else, then, you know, it doesn't cost me much to help you understand finance or entrepreneurship better. It's something that I got a pretty damn good mastery of this. It's pretty easy for me to teach someone who's already good at something about that too. It wouldn't be hard for you to teach me some fundamentals of striking or some advanced things that I already have an okay foundation. I'm coachable. I like to learn things. So that's just an example.
Yeah.
You know, but if you had those shared values and shared goals and differentiated skill sets, that I can do something for you that might be extremely valuable for you but low cost to me.
Right.
And you could do something that might be extremely valuable to me but low cost for you. It's like an ideal friendship.
Yeah, and then, you know, it's a standard. You're setting the standard, whether it's your business or your friendship or a relationship. But at the end of the day, for me, being at the gym and listening to the needs of what my staff wanted, right? Sitting down and going, what tools can I give to you guys or that you guys need to make your job more successful, and listening and understanding. You know, and then I remember talking to one of the front desk guys, and he's like, you know, I just don't feel like I'm utilized to my potential or my needs. He wanted more responsibilities, right? You start to understand what, you know, oh, this guy went to college, but he worked in my front desk and he feels like he's just undervalued because all he's doing is answering phones and plugging things in. Oh, okay, well, let's give this guy more responsibilities and more things to do, right? Now he feels like more a part of the team. He feels more value involved in this growth, right? It's like, what was it? Was it Abraham Maslow or the
Hierarchy of needs.
Hierarchy of needs, right?
Maslow, yeah.
So, you know, I think like when you build a team and you're around individuals, for me especially, I know that the accountability starts with the leadership. Listen, did I not train this person correctly? Did I not give them the right tools? Did I not give them the proper things? Especially if they're disgruntled or maybe they're not reaching their potential. I have to look within myself first. Okay, did I not give them what they need? And then that's to me where our gym has been very successful, is that for one, everybody speaks up. It's not a dictatorship, right? But they're happy. And when they go to work, they should enjoy going to work. They enjoy being in the gym. They enjoy being around their friends and people they consider teammates. And that to me has been what's been the successful formula for Xtreme Couture.
Gotcha. For the employee or the structure of the staff there.
Who wants to go? I have a friend that works at the gym that has the same job at two different hotels, right? They work the same job at he works two jobs, two different hotels. One at the Four Seasons, one down on the Strip. Loves his job at the Four Seasons, hates his job over here. Well, it's the same job. You're doing the same thing over here and over here. He goes, yeah, but the leadership over here at the Four Seasons, the management, they check in on me daily. They know me by my first name. They ask me if I need anything to make my job easier. They know like my marital status. They know that. And this one over here, every time a manager comes over, it's to complain or to yell or to bitch or da-da-da. And you start to understand that it's that trickle-down effect from the leadership on down and what effects does it have on your employees. You know, and it was very eye-opening to me. It's like, wait, you have the same exact job here and here, but this one over here, the way you're treated.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to find people in your life or to fill any position in your life, that you have the formula that I outlined. You know, that
For sure.
You're dealing with somebody that you have a mutual respect. You
Yeah.
have mutual rules of engagement.
But you feel like you're being taken care of.
Yeah.
You feel like the person next to you is taking care of you,
Yeah.
and you have that trust.
I don't have any accidental friends. This is a topic that, when I say something like this, the knee-jerk reaction occasionally from, somebody that knows me in the distance, is like, that sounds mean, Derek. That sounds harsh, Derek. I don't have any accidental friends. I don't want to spend time with random people accidentally. I want to spend time with high performers. I want to spend any time that I spend with others. I'm very comfortable being alone.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm spending time with anyone else, like, it should be purposeful. It should be somebody who's very good at something. And it's a goal of mine to find a way, how could I contribute to that person's life that, like, there'd be some win-win, or at least we're having a conversation to explore those type of opportunities.
Right.
Like, I wonder if we'd be a good fit to help each other with something that would be significant for both of us,
Yeah.
And some people don't get that. They say, oh, but I have my friends, and like, no, I mean, a lot of people, their friends are like somebody they randomly grew up with accidentally in their neighborhood.
They're still involved in your life for some reason.
I call them legacy friends.
Yeah,
It's like people that you would never make friends with these people if you met them today.
Yeah.
If you've already surpassed them a long time ago, the default conversation that you have to have with them, you can't talk about things that you've accomplished recently because they're resentful or they might not even believe you.
Man, I see it all the time. Yeah.
And your conversation defaults to like, remember back in the day when we did this together. Remember back in the day.
It's always back before you were successful, or when we were equals of the time. Yeah, I have a few of those. And it's funny because you just don't find the value in spending time with them anymore. You just don't, and it's sad to say, but you're absolutely right. It's like it almost becomes kind of cutthroat, where there's guys I grew up with or guys that I thought were my friends that maybe. My dad always had a great saying too, are you growing together or are you dying together, right? Are you growing together or are you dying together? Or somebody pulling you back and bringing you down and this and that, and then they slowly but surely, they almost just kind of fall out of your life. You just ostracize themselves. Either we're growing or you're not, and I don't got time for you.
So my legacy friends from my teenage years, it was such a terrible group of misfits. Like the 6 guys that I was close with, 3 of them are dead now. One of them's doing 30 years in a state penitentiary.
Jesus.
One had life in a federal penitentiary, like real life.
Yeah.
And the 6th one, he didn't even escape either. He was high and drunk and operating heavy equipment, and he got himself crippled up pretty bad. That's totally his fault, totally his fault. And he's just smart enough to know that. So you have to live with that for the rest of your life. You have permanent physical injuries that was part of his hand amputated and some other things. And I think to myself that I begged some of these people to come with me and come work on this project with me, like come to college with me, come entrepreneurial things, investment things. Some of them were just fun social things that we were going to go learn something together from, whether it was a self-help type context or whatnot, or like a training retreat of different kinds. And, they made fun of me for that. It was cool to go be a neighborhood tough guy and do these terrible things that are going to lead to terrible outcomes in their lives, and did. It's cool to get, really drunk or, use drugs or crazy shit. I never got involved in drugs heavy. I'm not a saint, and I tried numerous things as a teenager, and I'm not ashamed to say that, but I never had a drug problem per se. I never had a habit of doing anything like that. But they did. And that was cool. But reading a book, that wasn't cool. Watching a documentary or listening to audiobooks instead of loud music, that wasn't cool. Mm-hmm. Going to college, that's what lame people do.
Yeah, no room for growth.
So if I would have continued to engage in the same behaviors, you know exactly what the outcome would have been.
Exactly, you would be one of the 6.
Yeah, and there's no way around that. That you will be like the there's the old adage from the 70s, but it goes back much longer than that. But a guy named Jim Rohn popularized a thought of you'll be like the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And Epictetus talked about this over 2,000 years ago. Epictetus is saying that you have to choose to outgrow the people that you're around, at the cost of their resentment, or you have to choose to forfeit your future to stay with the people that you're currently around. Mm-hmm. And he said you can't do both. That a person that tries to do both will accomplish neither. That. So that's not a new idea. It's at least a 2,000-year-old idea. But a lot of people have a hard time, making that separation. That they think there's some amount of disloyalty in that of, you're outgrowing your friend and you're supposed to drag them with it. I beg some of these people. I'm embarrassed sometimes to say that I beg some of these people. I ask them 100 times, come do this thing and tell them why, and spent too much energy trying to get them to come with. They didn't want to.
Yeah, you can't want it more than them.
I don't feel like I was a disloyal friend. I think they were disloyal to their own future.
Correct.
I think they were disloyal to themselves.
Correct.
I love what you just said. You can't want success for somebody more than they want it for themselves.
Correct. It happens a lot as a coach. You see a lot of potential. You see a lot of talent in certain individuals, and they can't show up on time. They can't do the little things right, And then you start looking at the other side of the tracks. So like, well, what's Francis Ngannou doing? Oh, this guy's 30 minutes early to every practice. He's an hour after practice and he's doing more cardio. He's doing this and he's doing that. And you want to follow that path, or do you want to follow the path of the guy who can't bring tape to practice?
Let's dig into that for a moment. So you've been there 15 years, you said, from the beginning.
Yeah.
So you've seen a whole lot of people come and go.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands come and go. What's the difference between somebody that shows up and they show up on day one and they think they're going to do something significant, or they have a bold goal when they walk in that probably they're not going to get it, but they seem dedicated that you're like, maybe you will. What's the difference from two people that walk in with that bold goal, and one of them actually becomes that person, becomes Francis, or a champion in their right, or a high level contender, versus a person who fumbles around and flunks out essentially?
So I love the fact when people come in with a belief, because sometimes your belief might be up here, but your skill set might be here. But if you put the work in and you can get after this skill set and it can catch up to the belief, then we're on to something. But if you're coming in and you're just telling me all this shit, but your actions don't back it up, I got no time for that. I'll tell guys, hey, don't tell me, show me. Don't tell me how good you're gonna be or how great you're gonna be. Show me in the room and how you do it. Your actions speak louder to me. So, there's guys when I did a little video a couple months back, and it was aimed at a few guys in the gym. They're 5 minutes late for every practice. 5 minutes late. So I started counting how many reps guys were getting. Practice starts at 3:30. It's on the dot, Derek. It's not 3:31, 3:30. And the guys in the room, pretty much damn near 90% of them are on the time, on the mat, ready to go, taped up, geared on correctly. Practice starts. And then there's about 10 show up a little bit late. And I started counting. Well, these guys are getting about 10, 15, 20 reps in that 5 minute span. Then I started thinking, well, an 8-week camp, right? If you're late for 5 practices, you're 5 minutes late, you're missing out on this many reps, you start doing the math. And out of an 8-week camp, let's say you lose your fight by a split decision. How can you not go back and look at 1,300 reps left on the mat?
Let's do the math, So I know some fellas that are training, 13 times a week, 7 sessions plus 6 sessions, What's to be one of the top fellas? What have you seen? You have more experience than I do at it. What do you see as what with that training camp? They're going 10 times a week. They're going 12, 13 times a week. What does that look like?
So most guys are doing 2-a-days, and there's a morning session, might be strength and conditioning, and then there's a team session with or sparring or something along those lines. And when we sit down for a camp and we write out our schedule. And we write it out together. I want them to write it out, and then I'll look at it, and then maybe I'll tweak a few things here or there.
You want them to own it.
I want them to own it, and I want them to feel like it's theirs, right? But I'm kind of that shepherd. I'm going to help guide you down the path. Well, you have 7 strength and conditionings throughout the week. Why do we have that many? Oh, well, I didn't even think of it that way. Let's do this or let's do that. Then I'll make them put a number value on what practices are the importance of that practice per day. Mm-hmm. So now if you're in the meat and potatoes of camp and you're tired or something, and you should be, you value each practice to where, okay, this practice for me on Mondays is a 10, this one's a 2. I'm going to eliminate the 2 so I know I'm ready to go for the 10 because there's more value to that practice to me than anything, right? So you kind of start trimming the fat as you go. But again, like when you understand your schedule, the commitments to where everything goes and everything else, your camp starts to flow and you know where you need to be. And that to me, I think is, that 8 weeks is perfect for the fighter to where you're not burning them out or killing them out throughout the camp. So now, hey, coach, I'm tired. Okay, let's take a 10 out today. We're almost at fight now. The hay's in the barn. The technique's been done. The rounds have been done. I just need you to do a 2 today. Let's get in this session today. So we kind of can micromanage as you go. But most guys, most fighters, they're doing 2-a-days and maybe a hard cardio on Saturday and Sunday off. But they're hitting it like, I just want them to think that the days that you're taking off, that you're supposed to be working, that your opponent is doing what they're supposed to be doing.
So some rough numbers, and I understand, that you could assign a weight to different classes, have a different weight. But, on average, that weight averages out as well. So if they're missing 5 minutes times 12 times a week, so that's an hour, times 8 weeks, so that's 8 hours of training. Is arguably the most important, 8 weeks of their year. You get to do that a couple times a year. So it's one of the 2 or 3 most important times of your whole year.
Yep.
One of the 2 or 3 most important times of your whole year, and you're missing some of the most important minutes that, and I would argue if the person isn't a little self-conscious about showing up late, they should be. So probably they're second guessing themselves a little bit, or their brain is a little distracted too, that they showed up late. They're out of rhythm with the other people. Yep. Somebody else in the room is judging them. Somebody else is feeling a little smug of like, hey man, I showed up early and, I got this guy, Somebody else, there's assessments being made between the men feeling each other
And
out.
during that time too, Derek, guys are lining up their rounds. So practice starts and guy goes, who do you got round 1? I got you, boom, 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 boom. So rounds are now lined up. Now you show up 5-10 minutes late and you're mad because you don't have any rounds. Well, what the fuck you want me to do about it? I got an idea. Show up early and get your rounds lined up.
You might be totally on board with this, or you might think I'm crazy, but I'm gonna keep dragging this out because I want to make the point to a few people here. So you missed 8 hours of training time. Then you have inferior training partners. Then you have other guys in the gym that are judging you negatively, the coaches, the team around you, even the staff. So the coaches look at you like, that guy's not, don't have the same oomph as some of these other fellas. The staff is looking at you a little funny of like, oh, that guy's a world champion and he showed up 30 minutes early. And you say you're going to be a world champion, but you're not walking the talk. Yeah. And then, so to elaborate on those points is like, so those people are going to spend a little less time. They're going to take you a little less seriously or spend a little less time around you. That if you have to make a decision to, ask your wife to wait 30 minutes for something, you might do that for a guy that shows up 30 minutes early himself, but you're probably not going to do that for a fella that doesn't show up on time and have that same level of commitment. So now your coaches are less committed to you. Your training partners take you less seriously. Hey, do those same training partners and coaches, do they stay at the same place forever? Or they end up in other gyms later, don't they?
Yeah.
So what's your reputation become over time if you behave that way?
Exactly.
So your whole reputation becomes, a little less serious and maybe a bit of a joke to some people.
Yep.
I'm sure jokes are made about it in the gym. It's the type of humor that would happen in that environment. So if you don't take your own life serious enough to show up on time, it's those little things. It's those little things that show up 5 minutes late. That you had less training time, lower quality training time. It's the difference between maybe being the next champion in real life or maybe just being the joke of the gym.
So when you see these men and women lose fights, whether it's a close decision, whether they got knocked out, whether this or whether that, their first instinct is to place blame, or it's on the gym, or it was the coaching, or is this. For one, there's usually individuals that don't look within and find their own accountability and what they're doing wrong. But number two, as a coach, and somebody loses in that fashion, how do you not look at what we call the crumbs? You left all these crumbs behind. You didn't clear your plate, man. So you want to think about all these reps. Maybe there was those extra reps that would have got you out of that position. Or you had that extra scramble, a little bit more cardio, maybe a little bit more technical prowess. Why don't we look at that first, because you decided to miss 1,300 reps throughout an 8-week camp?
I had a situation. Some people think I'm grumpy, which is true. I'm a little grumpy and a little cheery at the same time. My moods are very consistent, but I'm always a little grumpy and a little cheery. You know, I had a situation last week. I scheduled interviews with 6 people. 6 people. 4 of them were champions. Current, you know, I think no harm in saying so. Kamaru Usman, he shows up when he's supposed to. First interview of the day. Kamaru is a current champion. He showed up. We had a great time together. Everything's on schedule. I was ready. He's ready. Everything's good. Okay. Marvin Vettori, not a champion yet, but you know, top contender.
Fought for the belts.
Yeah, fought for belts. Top contender. Marvin Vettori, he showed up on time. You got plenty of stuff he could have been doing. Both these fellas, plenty of stuff he could have been doing. Marvin, he showed up on time. Mike Bisping, former champion, British royalty, pretty wealthy guy. You know, amongst other fighters, he's doing better than most. And you know, Mike showed up. Mike stayed in town an extra day because I couldn't do it on Friday, so Mike rescheduled till Sunday to meet my schedule. His birthday was the next day. On his birthday weekend,
tells you a little bit about him.
Mike Bisping rescheduled. You know, he showed up maybe 20 minutes late, but he did reschedule, you know, on his birthday weekend to come do something with me, and he showed up and things went great, you know?
Yeah.
All right, what else happened? Oh, then the next fella, I'll go back to him. Then there's a blank. We'll come back to that blank. Misha Tate, she came over, you know, former champion, showed up early, showed up 15, 17 minutes early. Misha comes over early. Then Junior Dos Santos, also former champion, also shows up on time. So 4 champions and a top contender that fought for belts, they all managed to make it, you know, on time, early, or, you know, in one case, slightly late, but within semi-reasonable parameters. Right. Okay. The 6th person, I'm not going to say his name out of respect, but, you know, he's done very well. He's had a good career. He's done very well. He's not nearly as successful as any of those other 5. He shows up at 45 minutes. He told me, I'm going to be a little late. I don't really like that, you know. But I'm not going to be fucking late. But he's just telling me he's going to be a little late. So I bite my tongue. Like, okay. And I called him. He said, I'm getting in an Uber. I'm on my way. And I'm like, you're getting in an Uber. It's already 20 minutes after. And at 45 minutes after, I just texted him. I said, we don't have time. I have a schedule with other people. Yep. At 45 minutes late, I said, there's no time. I said, you might as well, you know, go anywhere else, but there's no time. She shows up 61 minutes. He still shows up 61 minutes late, and he wants to sit and talk to me. And I refused to have the meeting. I said, you know, we had plans over an hour ago. Yeah. We made a plan an hour ago. I have, you know, 2 more champions coming right after. It's like, I'm not going to be late for them. I'm not going to tell them to reschedule, or I'm going to be late for...
Because of the ripple effect. Now that's going to affect their time, the people that you already have scheduled.
I'm not going to do that.
Right.
That's not my reputation. I'm not going to
Can't do it.
And then, you know, he's a little fussy about that. He's like, we could do it later tonight. So I got a 14-hour workday today. Yeah. Not that I'm going to be awake 14 hours. I'm going to work 14 hours just on that. Yes. And then I got to take care of other business things. Yes. And, you know, it'd be nice if I sleep, you know, cool if I slept like 20 hours after I woke up in my 40s. Yeah. That'd be all right, you know? And he said, well, I could do it late tonight. I said, no, no thanks. We're good. You know? And then he writes me the next morning and he said, well, you know, when can we reschedule? I said, you know, I respect who you are and what you've accomplished, and I wish you well in life, but I don't do business that way. I don't do things that way. And I have no interest in rescheduling. I wish you well, but I have no interest in, you're not going to reschedule it. Right. So,
and probably costed him a good relationship.
I mean, look, to the type of person that's interested in like more financial prosperity or being around other people, like, I mean, there's a reason I got a pretty good following. There's a reason that, you know, my clients say the things they say about me. There's a reason that world champions and other people are willing to show up and spend time with me. That, and the truth is, and I mean this very respectfully, like for the contribution that any one of those people as an individual could make to my life versus what the contribution that I could make to their life, like they're getting the better deal. And I say that respectfully. I'm not a terribly egoic person, but you know, if we became good friends, probably the percentage change in their life outcomes would be more significant than the percentage change in my life outcomes. And ideally, we'd both be really happy with that and we'd both be better off. And that's what's important,
Yeah.
So I just don't want to spend time with somebody that, if we don't have those, I'm not a saint. I messed up plenty of things in life. I'm going to mess up a few more, man. But if I make a promise that I'm going to do something, then I'm going to do the thing, And I don't really want to spend time with people that don't have that similar philosophy.
It's funny how connected you and I are when it comes to these things, especially in the MMA and the coaching realm, because I only have a certain amount of time throughout the day. The one resource in life we don't get back. And am I going to waste my time with somebody that doesn't respect mine? You can't show up on time. You don't do the little thing right. Or am I going to invest my time in a guy like Francis Ngannou or Dan Ige or these fighters that are busting their ass day in and day out that want this goal? They're on the same vision as me. And I want to travel and I want to do all these things with these people. Or do I want to waste my time with somebody that doesn't even can show up on time? I'm all set. Go to the B-level coach. Go to another gym. I don't care. I'm chasing titles. I want to be around the people that have that same mindset as me.
Yeah. My programs and any program that I spend personal time on, even group programs, there'd be 100 people in the program. You can't just go buy a seat, to a 100-person program, because I do, 2 hours a week, every Wednesday, from now until my death, maybe after. Every Wednesday, I'm going to show up and do my 2-hour call, and I do, Q&A about, they can't even be on that call if they didn't do the assignments. They have an accountability call on Monday or Tuesday. We do 2 accountability calls, one on Monday, one on Tuesday. They can schedule either. So they got to tell my staff. They have to show to my staff, I did the work, I did the meeting. These are main takeaways from the week. There's a couple things that were very good. I'd like to have some clarity on this thing. If they did the homework, then they're going to be on the call with me on Wednesday. If they didn't do the homework, I don't need to talk to that person. If they don't do the homework twice, we just remove them from the program. We don't give them a refund. I don't give them a penny back. I say this as part of the marketing. If it's a person that if you're not going to show up for your own success, don't show up.
Yeah.
Don't show up. I'm good if they don't show up. I don't mind. But I don't want the wrong person to show up. I want all of the right people to show up. But if I had to make an error one way or another, I'd much rather error on the side of caution that the group is going to be a certain type of person that they're going to show up for their success. They don't have a problem working. They tell me, Derek, I want to be a multimillionaire. You can't work 20 hours a week? If I give you 20 hours of stuff to do, you tell me you're going to be a multimillionaire? Like, I had my first $1 million when I was 29. You're telling me you want to be a multimillionaire, but they can't work 20 hours a week towards that goal? It'd be like somebody telling you they're going to be a world champion, but they can't show up to practice, Yeah. Anyway, we have an application process that it's not hard. It's not like a hard thing or, it's, but I want them to be able to answer clearly to my team. They got to request an interview. One of my people will reach out to them. And, it's just a few questions. It's not hard. We just want to make sure that, there's a clarity of what the expectations are. Like, if they can't answer a question, like, why do you know that Derek is the best coach mentor for you in this area of your life? If they don't know why that I'm the best person for them to do it, then go try somebody else and see how that goes for you.
Right.
Go try anybody. I'm fine with that. But if they don't think that I'm the best guy or they can't answer that question simply, like, it's not a hard question, it's not a tricky question, but if they don't have a thought in their head that, why that's true, then somebody else should have that spot. Because somebody else can answer. There's 100 and something other people that can answer the question very clearly,
I like that you do that though, because it's funny when, myself and the gym started to become more successful and we started winning these big fights, and I'll get fighters that write me that they want to train with me and they want to do this, they want to do that. But it's funny that they think that just because I'm in their corner, that all of a sudden they're just going to win these fights. Mm-hmm. I don't wave a magic wand over your head. It's the system. It's your questionnaire that you're talking about, right? Show up to the gym, start doing all the work that we're asking you to do, show up on time, be prepared, be at all the practices, do all these little things right. It's no crazy formula. And then all of a sudden, you're going to start winning these fights. We're going to help guide you to those things, but you got to be the one to show up and do it right. And I had a guy come out. He wanted, Francis won his title. He's a heavyweight, great guy. I want to come train with you. I love the guy. I said, great, come on out. First session that we have scheduled, misses it. First pad session, misses the pad session. Look at his Instagram. He's at High Rollers the night before. What does it tell me about him and his commitment to his goals and his needs and his success? Shit, man, you can't even make your first session, but you can make High Rollers. You can be out all night. You know, that's another thing too we talk about quite a bit is I know what type of fighter I'll have because when you move to Vegas, if you have any issue whatsoever, gambling, drug, women, whatever, Vegas will find it and they will expose it.
Yeah, well.
Immediately. And that's what I love about this. I'm born and raised in Las Vegas. My mom's born and raised in Las Vegas. I had a fake ID when I was 16 years old, right? If a fighter moves to Vegas and tells me that they want this or they want that or they can be this, they can be that, I let Vegas run its course. And I'll know right away what we have, you know? And it'll tell you. It'll tell you right away. It'll pull it out of you.
Yeah. No, that is true about Vegas. But other people, if they spend 5 days in Vegas, it might be like a life-altering experience and maybe not in a good way.
No, man. It's funny because you see, you know, when you fly into Vegas, everybody's on that, yeah, Vegas. And you fly out of Vegas and the whole plane is a little bit different.
I've seen that.
A little bit different, man.
The lower cost the airline, the more that mood shift.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you're on a low-cost carrier, there's a bigger and a bigger...
Yep.
I have a few thoughts about this, but I'd love to hear your perspective first. As you know, a friend of mine, Carrie Walsh, she's a volleyball champion. She's the dominant female volleyball champion. She had 3 gold medals, got a bronze medal. At her peak, she won 112 professional matches in a row, consecutive. Unreal. Imagine there's a win streak of 112
Unreal.
matches. And something that I've heard her say a couple times, she says, masters are consistent. And she talks about the consistency in behavior and the focus that's required to have those sort of champion outcomes. And what are some observations that you've had in that area of the focus or consistency that's required to be a top level performer, to perform at your best personally, or for someone to be that champion in their respective craft?
I think to me the consistency is the thing that really stands out the most, is because it's that repetitions that we talked about. It's the willingness to fail and come back and persevere and keep bouncing. But as a coach, I think for me, it's the guys that really just, that commitment to understand that it's the day in, day out grind that's really going to be the eventual product that we talked about, the process that they enjoy, And Dan Ige really stands out to me, because he's just that fighter that I've been around on the lower level. And this is before he made it into the UFC. And it also gives me a reason to understand how to coach him. What are his whys? The sweat equity that we spend together on the mat in those consistency times, right? What makes him tick? How do I know how to coach him in those trying times where it's, 2-2 going in round 5 or 1-1 going in round 3? It gives me points of emphasis to where I know I can coach him through, where I can point at and go, hey man, this is for your son, or this is for this, or all the things that we've already put in. But moreover, it's not an empty face sitting across from him on that stool. It's a guy that he knows that we spent that sweat equity together, that consistency together on the mats. That it's not just bullshit. Yeah, man, when this guy tells me he believes in me, maybe at a moment where I feel vulnerable, I know that he believes in me. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper, right? Or I can find things I can point at. Francis Ngannou, 2-2 going into round 5. Hey, motherfucker, I believe in you. I do, because I've been in there with you. I've seen what you've been through. I know what you've been through. We got 5 minutes left, man. Let's go get this. And in his head, he starts to click on those things that he's been through, the consistency, everything he's been through in his life. I know I can beat this guy in the next 5 minutes. Let's go get it. you know? So that to me is just, it's the basis. It's just the building blocks. That consistency in the gym, being together, growing. I need all of that for when we get on the stool and when it matters the most.
Yeah. I think I feel bad for people that think that they're going to have those sort of, magical success without putting in the work. And
it's the process. You got to enjoy it.
I've always been resigned to do hard work. It never occurred to me, literally since I was like a child, like before age 10, I wasn't like shy about working hard at something. I just wanted to make sure I was working on the right things to get a good return, to have a good benefit from the efforts that I made. And when I see this internet ethos of magical winning in various ways, you're gonna be magically rich. You're going to do not much, but magically the best women in the world are going to be attracted to you.
Yeah.
You're going to do not much, but you're going to be, well respected by other respected people. Like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
I just think it's some of the silliest things that you got to feel sad for the intellect of somebody that believes that that's possible. And, I guess maybe a final question I'd ask you wrapping up. Have you ever seen anybody with you said you've been around hundreds of champions, and I imagine that fits in my head that you've been at that place for 15 years, that you've seen people come through there that were former champions, future champions, current champions, and not just in UFC but in other leagues,
kickboxing and race FO, and exactly.
And I've been around many dozen myself, and spent personal time face to face and getting to know them. And I've asked every champion that I interviewed that, have you ever seen somebody with that, that belt around their waist, a championship belt, or a Super Bowl ring, or an Olympic gold medal, or a trophy of whatever type, held high above their head, and that universal sign of victory? You ever see anybody do that didn't have a great coach or a great mentor in the background?
I really don't see it. I mean, I think a lot of them are in tune with the connection with their coach, or they find somebody, and not necessarily like the coach might be this world renowned or anything like that, but they share the same visions. They share the same integrity systems. They're trying to make it to where they're rowing the boat in the same direction, right? It takes a village. It's hard, but I think what makes like our relationship with Dewey Cooper, myself, Francis, Markel Martin, is that energy system that we're all there for one another and we're all taking care of one another. So when you start looking at like the commonalities of all these champions that you're speaking about, it's a unit, that they're surrounded by a unit. It might be small, it might be just 3-4 people, but you're talking about the consistency, you're talking about the camaraderie, right? They're all confident. We had a coach, it was funny, one of my coaches I still talk to this day, which is important to me. I come from a lineage of coaching. My dad was our defensive coordinator. My uncle was our linebackers coach. My uncle was the dean at my school, but he also coached basketball. I have a lineage of coaches that I grew up with that I still remain in contact with. And why is it important to me is what we talked about earlier, is that I can pay that forward to them, that they can see their teachings through me in a completely different sport, but the same standards that they set within me, they can see that same lineage. I can still teach those things, and I'm going to try to make it even better. And I'm going to try to pass it on to the guys in MMA. Whole different genre, whole different sport. But there's still the standard that they set with me. Wow, football, MMA, that's different. No, it's not. No, it's not. I can find the commonalities between the sports and what makes those guys successful and how to push them and make them great. And that's always been my goal, is to be that vessel, if you will, to help guide them. Somebody asked me, what is your goal? My goal in life is to help these people accomplish theirs. That's where I feel like I'm best suited. When I get to see Francis Ngannou bring that belt back home to Cameroon and show his countrymen that he can do it. show his mom that what he believed in 15 years ago that he now has achieved. But what we talked about earlier too, Derek, what does it tell the rest of the people of Cameroon that Francis did it, then I know I can do it too?
Yeah, I think it's inspires a lot of people, and somebody that came from a rough circumstance does well for themselves. I've lived my version of that life, and I feel very happy and very grateful about. I don't want to be turning into an emotional thing, but even little things. I grew up in American poverty, not third world Cameroon poverty, and I've been to Africa and multiple countries, and I know the difference in those circumstances. And I found the more that I was appreciative or grateful for things that were already going well, it gave me a bit more leverage to make even better things. You find more opportunity. If you're grumpy, if things are going relatively great for you, and you just hate your life, I mean, that's probably you, asshole. It's probably your fault.
We saw a lot of that during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Perspective became a big thing during the pandemic. And I remember thinking to myself, shit, there's going to be a lot of people that come out of this thing better, or they evolve, or they find something to do to make their ends meet, or they come out of this thing with a new skill set, right? Or they're better in a certain area. Or we're going to sit around and do what? Complain. Life's got me down. I'm stuck in this. I can't do this. Blah, 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 blah. Find it.
During the same circumstance where, they're in the United States, where people had, generally similar circumstances, doing generally better than much of the world, I had clients that made $8 million during that time. I made high 30s. I made about $40 million in 2 years. We'd 40, not like revenue. Like I added $40 million to my net worth in a couple of years' time. I had other clients that made $1 million, 2 million euros, et cetera, et cetera. Even people that didn't have money to invest to do that, people 40% raise. Even though they're working remotely in many cases, 40% raise, 40%.
They found
raise.
ways.
Those are increments. They got a raise and another raise and another raise, and it's the type of things that we've been talking about. I tell them, go to work and ask for more responsibility.
Yeah.
Go tell, I want you to go tell your supervisor, Jarek, how do I get a raise? So you tell your supervisor, what are the 3 key things that you want me working on this year? And then when they ask you to do something that's not one of those things, tell them, hey, these are the 3 key things that you told me to focus on. Now you're telling me this 4th thing. Do you want me to make one of these a lesser priority? Or is there probably somebody else that could do that 4th thing? Because I want to focus on the 3 most important things.
Right.
So again, and then a few steps in there, you'll get this, and it might be useful in some way, but I certainly don't think you'll disagree with any of it. Tell your employer, what's the number one thing that I could be doing to help free up more of your time?
Right.
So you could focus on the things that's most important to you.
Adding value.
Yeah. And when they give you a special assignment, because they will, because nobody else even asks for more work, more responsibility. When they start giving you special assignments, and they will, do it perfectly and turn it in on time or preferably early, and ask them, just for clarity, is this exactly the way you'd like it to be done? Or, what could I do better next time? What could I do to make this even better? What could I do even better next time? And pretty soon you get recognized in an organization, and you're.
And you talk about that trust and performance scale, right? So now instead of going in and asking for a raise, which is genius, right? You just asked, how do I create more value for you as the supervisor? How do I become more valuable to you? But what is that now in turn? One hand's going to wash the other. Later on down the line, he sees or she sees more value in you. You're inherently going to get a raise.
I once upon a time had a fellow that worked for me, and he was already on my list of probably underperforming, but I didn't have quite enough time. I was extraordinarily busy, and I've been meaning to make a phone call and say, what exactly are you, what exactly are your contributions here? That I want to make sure that I wasn't misunderstanding something, because it looks to me like the guy's underperforming and not doing as well as he could. Mm-hmm. And but before I assume that, I should give him the chance to tell me, well, I've been working on this and I did this and that, and maybe I'm wrong, Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, he writes me, and he'd like to have, I forget what, maybe a 60-ish%. It was something like 60% raise in one step. And I'm like, I'm already thinking about letting this guy go unless he convinces me that I'm mistaken and there's more in the background that I'm unaware of. And I called him when I got that message, and I called him the same day. And I said, well, help me understand, what exactly you've been doing that perhaps I'm unaware of. And there was really nothing. My intuition was correct. So instead of getting a raise, that was his last day. That we had a different conversation. I wasn't mad. I didn't raise my voice.
Right.
And he's like, well, maybe I could do this or that. I said, you know what? I'm going to pay you through the end of the month. I don't want you to do anything else. You're done working now.
Yeah.
All right. There's nothing else for you to do. I'm going to pay you through the end of the month. And because he was getting compensated monthly, so I'm going to pay you for this month. I don't want you to do anything else, but spend that time finding your next project because you're not here anymore. And I wasn't mean. I didn't raise my voice. And he's like, well, we could negotiate it. I'm like, no, the judgment that you showed me in, the level of performance versus what you think the level of compensation should be for that performance. Like, I can't trust you after that type of misjudgment.
Right.
Like, I'm not mad at you. I wish you well. Within my integrity of telling the truth, I'd be happy to help you get another job if somebody asked me, could he do this well? So yeah, he could do that well.
I hope you did him that. I hope you did him a favor, because I hope that he goes back and understands the accountability for whatever the next thing that he does down the line. Instead of placing blame, I hope he goes, hold on, where could I improve and be better, and take that experience on to the next and flip it.
I hope he does. I'm 50-50 if he actually will. But not a bad guy. I don't dislike the guy. I wish him well, but probably not with me. Probably wasn't the right place. So, hey man, I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
You shared a lot of managerial nuances, a lot of coaching nuances that it's hard to get that access to information. And I love the system that you're spending your time with winners. You're assessing people, and you're spending your time with people like if you invest your time, that you're going to feel mostly emotionally gratified later. Like if you spend your time with somebody, hey, this guy's actually going to do something with it, and they're going to make something out of themselves. Or hey, that girl's serious, and she, if I spend time helping her, she's going to go do something with it and make something out of herself. And I think that's an overlap that we both share. That I try to sort through the muck out there, and I'd invite anybody that's you're good at something. You already learned how to learn. I think that if somebody already learned how to learn, they're good at something. I can help them be good in other areas too, but they already have a sense of work ethic and discipline and a habit of showing up for their own success. So really easy for me to help somebody like that do even better in their life. And if you're doing well and you want to do even better, I'm happy to hear from you. But you got to show up for your own success.
Exactly.
You got to show up for your own success. Thank you, Eric.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Derek. Yeah, thank you.
You watch this video all the way through, and that tells me you're dedicated to learning more and earning far above average outcomes in your life. Congratulations for that. But now it's time to take action. If you could have earned those results by yourself, you would have done it already. My head coach has opened up a few spots on his high-demand calendar for an in-person, one-on-one strategy session to help you. On this call, we'll give you the pragmatic advice that you can implement tonight to get laser-focused on the right metrics and leave mediocrity far behind in your past. Click that link right now in the description below and apply for your call immediately. Do it now.